Hello, hello, party people. Never seen this before. I saw a clip of it, not the whole thing, obviously. I am intrigued. This is from Halsey, Part 1. Endometriosis, Lupus, and the Unfiltered Truth about living with chronic illness. Wow. Put myself over there, I guess, over here maybe? Okay. Here we go. Oh, I should probably start from the beginning now.
I think you had a miscarriage once on stage.
I miscarried during a concert.
What?
Yeah.
Yep.
What happened?
I started miscarrying before the show.
Did you know?
I knew. I remember thinking to myself, I'm 20 years old. Like, I should be able to carry a baby. I didn't want to be pregnant. I was way, involved in my career. But so I had a lot of complex feelings of like relief, but also confusion, but also guilt and also grief. And then at the same time, I had a big burning question in my mind, which is, something must be wrong with me.
Hi, I'm Dr. Thais Al-Yabadi.
And I'm Mary Alice Haney.
I mean, like, if you're miscarrying on a regular basis, I think, yes, I agree, there's probably something wrong with you physically.
Today we are so excited to welcome Grammy-nominated, platinum-selling artist and fierce women's advocate Halsey to the show. She is not only a multi-talented performer and entrepreneur, but also one of Dr. A's favorite patients.
I have had the pleasure of treating her for over 10 years. Today, Halsey opens up about her recent health challenges, including lupus and a rare T-cell disorder. We also discuss her journey with endometriosis and the joys and challenges of motherhood.
You are not going to want to miss this episode. Thanks for listening to SheMD. Okay, so I don't know how many of y'all are listening or watching this podcast today, but this woman walked into our set and it was like a ray of sunshine walked in, gave me the biggest hug, and you literally are, I'm a little disturbed that I just found out that your mom is 50 and I'm 51,
Stop.
but other than that, I am so excited to have you today on the podcast, and Dr. A has told me so much about you and just how much she loves you and how you are actually a doctor that you
Well, okay, I'm so happy to be here and I'm so excited. I have known Dr. A for such a long time. She's like a member of my family and I'm so excited to get into everything today. As far as me being a doctor,
Yo, every time you see her, she has more and more tattoos. I think she gets them like per album or per concert. Well, I guess it can't be per concert, but yeah, I think every tattoo was based on the album cover image, the songs, etc.
Yes, you are, Dr. Ashley.
Some of my friends have been known to say that about me. No, I obviously have like the most respect for all of my doctors. I just like to pretend to be one, but in a well-meaning way.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
No, I'm the same thing. I play one on this podcast.
Totally. Yeah,
I play the
totally.
really uneducated one because I'm always like, what does that mean?
No, it's so funny. I was looking at a friend of mine the other day, and we were sitting out in the sun, and we were talking, and he started getting this like red rash on his face, and it was like white under his eyes. It was sparing his nasolabial folds. I was in the middle of a conversation, and I was like, hey, so we can maybe do it on, and I was like, have you had your thyroid checked? And he was like, yeah, I did. I was like, do you have Hashimoto's? He was like, yeah, but I literally just found out. How do you know that? I was like, just wondering. Like,
I'm telling you.
She told me that about you. She says she's going to know because we're going to get into, you made this incredible announcement this week about, and we're going to get into all of that. But she said, you know what? And I said, Dr. Ray, you are a gynecologist, but you know everything about
She knows everything.
Everything about everything. And she's like, actually, she is going to come in here and know more about what's going on with her body than I could even tell you.
I might just ask her. She'll answer all your questions.
And before we jump into that, so we were talking earlier too about names, and you were saying our producer's name is Sterling, and and it was just a beautiful name. But you were saying be careful what you name your child because they'll want to change it. Did that happen? Because your surname or your given name is Ashley.
Yeah. So my birth name is Ashley, and being an Ashley born in 1994 was like, I mean, my name might as well have been John. Like I was like at least 7 Ashleys in my class growing up. It was like Ashley F, Ashley B, Ashley S. And I always make the joke, be careful because they'll change it. And then I did, so now it's so funny when the only people who call me Ashley are my mom and Dr. A.
Yeah. That's just an Ashley coming. I'm like, who?
Yeah, that's all people. Everyone calls me Ash or they call me Halsey. And, I've just come to answer to it. It turns my head just as naturally as if you called me by my birth name.
And how did you come up with Halsey?
Well, it's an anagram, so if you rearrange the letters of Ashley, it makes Halsey. But I came to that conclusion because I was riding a subway train, the L train in Brooklyn, and there's a stop on that train, the Halsey stop, which was my stop. And one night I was on the train and I was looking at the letters and I was just like, if you move all those around, that looks a lot like my name. And then within like a couple weeks, I was kind of tasked with this thing that was like, you need to pick a stage name.
How old were you at this time?
I think I was 18.
Wow.
Yeah. And I just knew right away that it was that. And now it feels, it took some getting used to, but now it just feels like just the same as if someone was like, hey, Ash,
And how old were you when you started this journey of being Halsey? I mean, in terms of your, being a musician and your career right now.
I was 18. I was 19 when I wrote my first album, and I think I was about to turn 20 when it came out. And I had always loved music, but I wasn't that kid, where you were like, you should do American Idol. Or like, Christmas parties and your parents are making you sing for people, or like a school, it was very much just like a private love of mine, until I figured out that I was really bad at sports. And when you're really bad at sports, you have to do something. And when your parents are working a bunch of jobs and they need you in extracurriculars, and they want to keep you, out of the house, but not on the street getting into who knows what, it was usually music. So for me it was piano, then it was violin, then it was cello, then it was guitar, and then little by little I started learning how to write music. But I wanted to be a painter, and I went to art school. And my apologies to anyone watching or listening who's currently an art major or was one. I had the realization that being a painter was like the riskiest career choice that you could possibly go for. So I did the obvious thing, which is I tried to become a pop star instead. So I got very lucky that worked out. Yeah,
that's amazing. So I don't know when this is going to air. We hopefully it's going to air soon if we can turn it around in time, because this week you made some big announcements about your health. Can you talk about that? Like,
sure.
What drove you to do that? Like, why now? And then we're going to talk about all the things. You've been so public, and on this podcast we feel so blessed to have people with the platform that you do that want to talk and want to help other women to know that they're not alone, and that these things are happening to them, and hopefully give them some insight so that they can go to their own doctor and help with their diagnosis.
I mean, absolutely. I think, the thing that really opened my eyes to the necessity of that conversation was my experience with endometriosis. Because when I met Dr. A, I don't know if you remember the exact circumstance that landed me there, but I had been really struggling for a long time with my menstrual cycle. And
how old were you at this point?
From the time I was got my very first period. Like it was, and I heard the same thing that everybody hears, which is women in our family have very heavy periods. I used to stay home from school, or I had to get a doctor's note, or a doctor just being like, take an Advil and call it a day. But I kind of knew something was wrong. I think that I was given a diagnosis of PCOS when I was in high school, but it was done in a very nonchalant way. That was kind of just like, a lot of women have this. I don't know. Go home, whatever. You know what I mean? Go to the hospital if something bad happens. We don't know. There's no education, no information. I didn't really understand even what that was at the time. But it wasn't until I I think I was 19.
Mm-hmm.
I was 19, and I went to go see my ENT, Dr. Nasiri.
Yeah.
And we was sitting in his chair, and I was having my vocal cords looked at, and I was turning green. And he was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, I had an IUD placed a couple of days ago, and I've been in excruciating pain. And I keep calling the doctor, and they just keep telling me to take Tylenol. I was like, "But I feel like something is really wrong with me." And right away, he was like, "You have to go see Thais." Like, he was like, "This is not."
You were
even,
19.
Yeah.
You guys have known each other that long?
10 years, yeah. And so it wasn't even like up for, I think I was 20, but regardless, it doesn't really make a difference. But, he sent me to see Thais, and she saw me the same day. She was like, "Absolutely, send her in." And I came to see her, and my IUD had perforated. And she was like, "If you came to see me a couple days later, you could have gone septic. You could have, like, I don't know what could have happened to you." She was like, "Why did you get an IUD? Is it for birth control? What was the reason?" I was like, "I was told it could help me with my period pain."
Wow. This is 48 minutes long. We're gonna power through it, trust me.
She asked me 3 questions about my periods, and then she looked at me and she said, "You have endometriosis." I said, "I have what?" I had never even heard of it.
Because you've been somebody had told her she had PCOS.
At
Did
that
she have
point,
PCOS?
I think at that point also, I remember you told me something about when you go on stage. At least that's what I remember. You would almost want to faint.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was her chief complaint to me. And I was thinking to myself, so I'm not a neurologist. What am I going
Yeah.
to do with this? But I started asking my questions, GYN related.
Yeah.
And it turned out I think you had a miscarriage once on stage.
I miscarried during a concert.
What?
Yeah.
Yep.
What happened?
I started miscarrying before the show.
Did you know?
I knew, and I was like I was in a really tough position because it was really early on in my career, and there was a lot attached to the show. So there was, a corporate partner, there was like a greater media entity partner, but more importantly than that, to me, there was like 1,000 kids who waited all day long to get into the show and see me. And what ended up happening was I ended up just putting on like an adult diaper. And I was like, the show, they'd only asked me to perform, I think, like 45 minutes. And I didn't really have that much music out, to be honest with you. So I don't know that I could have played longer. I didn't have the material. And I went and I did the show. I left stage. I threw up in the parking lot. I went to a hotel. And I was sick all night. I remember sitting in the bathtub because I just didn't know what to do with all the blood. Forgive me for being so graphic. And then waking up at 5 or 6 in the morning to get on another airplane to go to Canada. And
Are you still bleeding throughout this whole?
Yeah, I was bleeding for hours, and I think that
Do you know how painful that is?
Yes.
By the way, I just want to put it out there. I've had one miscarriage. I was on the floor, like vomiting. It's so painful.
It was tough. It was hard to be on my feet, and it was interesting about it is that the performance was actually recorded. So you can go on YouTube and you can watch me miscarry
Oh my God.
through a concert. And it's funny because when I look at it now, I see myself just like white and sweating, and my voice is different. My voice is like guttural. You know what I mean? It's like I sound and look like a different person.
Can you imagine?
No, I can't. I mean, I've had several
Only a woman
miscarriages,
can do that.
But I had to go get a DNC. I mean, that's, like my doctor was like, this is, you're going to need to get a DNC. So I didn't have to go through that.
And I just remember feeling like I don't know who to talk to about this. Because at the time, the only like stories about miscarriage that I had heard were from women who were happily married, and it was a tried pregnancy, and they most of the time would speak about it after they had successfully conceived and carried to term, and been like, so this happened before this.
Does anyone know if she was seeing G-Eazy during this time, like from 18 years old to 20 years old? And technically, would he have been the father? That's what I'm interested about.
It was just the world of information that was accessible to me. I just felt so alone.
You're a baby.
I did not even know who to talk to. Like, I had no idea what to do.
Got ad.
What is it
We
you're
got ad.
holding? A cookie?
We started SheMD because there are
Oh
so
my
many
God.
facets of women's health that we just simply aren't taught. And we want to arm you with the tools and information you need to be your own health advocate and take control of your health. One of these topics that I had no idea about until I started this podcast was vaginal health and your vaginal microbiome. It's something I had no idea about until I started this podcast.
I had
It's
no
also
idea
something
about
that
it
we
either.
should all be informed on because it's such a big part of our overall health. That is why I love Seed's VS01 Vaginal Symbiotic. It promotes a healthy vaginal microbiome and helps maintain balanced pH levels, which is crucial for our comfort and well-being. Just like our gut microbiome, we need to take care of our vaginal microbiome. That is why I love Seed's VS01 Vaginal Symbiotic. It promotes a healthy vaginal microbiome and helps maintain balanced pH levels, which is crucial for our comfort and well-being. One of the things I love about Seed is their commitment to science and rigorous testing. They've formulated this product based on 15 years of research on the vaginal microbiome, and the result is VS01, the first clinically validated vaginal probiotic with 3 proprietary strains of L. crispatus. It's designed to support your natural defenses and protect against daily disruptions like menstruation, exercise, and stress. And what's great about VS01 is its proactive, sustainable approach to vaginal care. Instead of just treating symptoms,
You see, I don't want to seem insensitive and skip all this, but like, this is taking up. I understand, like, you know, the people who do the podcast that there has to be some sort of profit incentive, of course. This is. It's just there could have been a video attached to this or something that I could look at. The text is. I feel like it could have been done better, basically.
it addresses the root causes of imbalances. Shift from harsh, reactive treatments to proactive, sustainable care with VS01 from Seed. Go to seed.com/SheMD and use code 25SheMD to get 25% off. That's 25% off VS01 at seed.com/SheMD, code 25SheMD. Now that it's summer and it's hot outside, we all know we're just not sweating in our armpits, and sometimes you need a little extra coverage for those other areas. You know what I'm talking about. The underboob sweat is real, especially this time of year. That's why I love First Aid Beauty's new whole body deodorant cream. I started using it after my hot yoga workouts, and it's quickly become an everyday essential. It's safe to use anywhere you sweat. Armpitties, your privates, underboobs, stomach, feet, and the invisible cream formula is perfect because it goes on clear with no streaks or white cast. First Aid Beauty's whole body deodorant cream offers clinically proven 24-hour odor protection, so I know I'm covered all day long. And it's free.
I just want to see Halsey. Just show me Halsey.
And dyes. It even smells good. I personally love the citrus scent. It's crisp and refreshing. And it's dermatologist and gynecologist tested, so it won't cause any irritation if you have sensitive skin like me. Feel fresh all over all summer long. Order First Aid Beauty's whole body deodorant cream today. And we're excited to share a special offer available right now just for our listeners. Get 20% off when you visit our exclusive URL, firstaidbeauty.com/SheMD, and use our promo code SheMD. That's firstaidbeauty.com/SheMD. Don't wait, get 25% off promo code SheMD at firstaidbeauty.com/SheMD. You know those days when you're just feeling off, maybe a bit sluggish or dealing with headaches? You may not even know it, but you're probably dehydrated. I say you may not know because I had Limit Sparkling, a bold 16-ounce can of sparkling electrolyte water.
And I remember in that moment, that was one miscarriage. I had 2 within the same year.
This is before the IUD.
Yes. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm 20 years old. Like, I should be able to carry a baby. I didn't want to be pregnant. I was way, involved in my career.
Did we see this already?
So I had a lot of complex feelings of like relief, but also confusion, but also guilt and also grief. And then at the same time, I had big burning question in my mind, which is something must be wrong with me, because of all the times in my life where I should be able to conceive and carry to term, this is the age. What's happening? And so those were some of the questions that I brought to Dr. A when I first, started seeing her. And ultimately, she did say in this office, she was like, you have endometriosis. She was like, I'm going to confirm it with a surgery. She was like, but I'm looking at you and I know that I'm not wrong. And she wasn't wrong at all. There was a bunch of little blue M&Ms inside me when she got in there.
Blue M&Ms. Yeah. But does endometriosis cause miscarriages?
Yes. It causes miscarriages, it causes painful period, it causes heavy periods, it causes painful sex, it can cause recurrent bladder infections.
It can cause organ damage if the tissue, scar tissue is aggressive enough.
Mm-hmm.
I know women who've had to have bowel resections because the endometriosis got into their bowel. It's really kind of like a full body, condition, and a lot of people really reduce it to being a reproductive illness. But
holy shit,
the effects of endometriosis, because at its core it functions like an autoimmune condition. And it's often comorbid with a lot of other conditions, like some of the other ones that I have.
You had.
Yeah.
But at the time, you don't know any of this.
I didn't know anything at all. I knew that my mom and my mom and my nana and my great nana all had heavy periods, and they all struggled to conceive. Wow. That's what I knew. I knew that my nana used to pray that someone would leave a baby in a basket on her doorstep in the 30s.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Did you have a hard time conceiving? Because you have a beautiful little boy.
So I didn't, because of the 8 years of work that Dr. A and I put into my fertility journey, and with her guidance, I was in such an exceptional position to be able to, but it took a lot of work on both ends. It took a lot, of thinking outside the box from Dr. A. It took surgeries. It took lifestyle changes on my end, both like physical lifestyle changes, but also emotional ones.
So what were some of the things that you did?
I mean, I certainly had to mitigate the amount of stress that I was under.
Right.
Like, I certainly did. My cortisol was not helping at all. And Dr. A used to tell me every time I saw her, she'd be like, you are too stressed out.
You've never seen if I tell you someone works harder than I do, can you believe it?
Nah.
Because I've never met someone who works harder than me. This woman does.
That's not true.
It's true. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm doing this and I'm going on a tour and then I'm going to go here. And I'm like, oh my God. This last time I'm like, tell me you're going to take our little Emmy.
But it's like sometimes when you get the one thing that you've always dreamed of, you're like, you're young too when it happened to you, so you don't really have the life experience to know, hey, you got to slow down, and you don't have to take every single job that's offered to you, and you don't have to do every single photo shoot, and you don't have to and but you have to learn that as you get older.
So you need security too, I think, in a certain regard. I think that once it became really apparent that the men in the black suits weren't going to come in and drag me back to Jersey, that I was like, okay, and I could start saying no to some stuff. But also it took, some personal reprioritization, where I was like, I want to be a mom. I would tell Dr. A every time I saw her, I want to be a mom, I want to be a mom. And she was really honest with me. She was like, I want you to be a mom too, and I think that you can conceive naturally. Mm-hmm. She was like, but I think you need to make these changes. And I did, in terms of my diet, the relationships I let into my life, the amount of work that I was doing. And then funnily enough, when I did conceive, I had expected it to take maybe 6 to 12 months. First try.
Mm-hmm.
Really? First try.
It goes to tell you, I was telling you, when you suppress endometriosis patients and you treat the implants, laparoscopic surgery, you resect it, and you suppress it, they do get pregnant. That's how you get an endometriosis patient out of the hands of the fertility doctors.
Yeah.
So say that again. Explain that again.
So for endometriosis, if you want these patients, at a young age, I always tell you, I always tell her, that if every 20-year-old in Los Angeles would go through my office once, just once, these fertility doctors would be out of business, because a lot of the money they make is because of these endometriosis patients who can't get pregnant, right? Mm-hmm. Average age of diagnosis for endometriosis is 32. Mm-hmm. If she had not come to me, she would have probably
waited 10 years.
Someone would have diagnosed her at 32. She would have probably had advanced adenomyosis, which is almost like endo in the wall of the uterus. She would have had adhesions in her pelvis. Her egg count would have gone down. Her egg quality would have gone down. But when you resect these implants outside of the uterus,
So resect means just for
cut them out.
You cut them out.
You cut them out, and you basically bring down the inflammation in the pelvis.
By how?
By removing these implants, because these implants are stimulated by the estrogen, right?
So you lower the estrogen.
Or give progesterone to them.
Which is how I got pregnant. Yeah.
So we resected it. We suppressed it with progesterone. So when I took the hormonal suppression off, she immediately got pregnant.
You did.
Even I was shocked.
You almost didn't believe it. I called her. I said, I also tested positive 7 days post-ovulation, which is very early. Like 7 DPO positive test is like crazy. And I know a lot of people who are trying and doing the tests and the waiting know that that's very early. And I think it might have been 6 actually even. But I remember calling Dr. A like a week after I ovulated and going, I'm pregnant. And she was like, come see me in a couple days. And I came in there and I'll never forget. She goes, oh my gosh, there's a heartbeat.
And you got
she
a heartbeat
so excited. And, funnily enough, I was having this conversation with Dr. Dan Wallace, who's my rheumatologist.
We love Dr. Wallace. He's been twice on this podcast. We love him so much.
He was showing me pictures the other day. He was like,
he's the sweetest human being.
He really is. He's also a genius.
He's a genius.
He's like an absolute genius in his field. And we were having a conversation, because not to pivot too drastically here, but this announcement that I made this week was about some diagnoses that I have.
And you announced that you have lupus and rare T-cell disorder.
Yeah, so I have lupus, and sometimes with lupus there's other complications. I announced like a couple years ago that I had been diagnosed with Sjogren's syndrome, which is really often comorbid, meaning going alongside of lupus. And because lupus is an autoimmune condition, sometimes it can suppress your immune system to the point that you develop like a T-cell lymphoproliferative disorder. They're like the most common in patients with a suppressed immune system or patients who are immunocompromised.
And what are the symptoms of both of those?
Lupus is, it's funny because the T-cell disorder is the scarier on paper, but lupus, I think, is the scarier in all actuality.
In what way?
Because the T-cell disorder operates like essentially like a leukemia.
And so what were those like in your body? What was happening?
All right, guys, I need to take a break. I'm going to drink some coffee or something. We'll jump right back into it. All right, party people. Let's try to finish this. It's not really what I expected, but some parts are interesting. So let's go ahead.
So I was getting sick very often. I was losing a lot of weight. This all happened within a couple months after I had my son. When I gave birth to Ender, I think I weighed about 165 pounds. I remember that because I went to see Dr. A for my 6-week appointment, and she said to me, congratulations, you've already lost 11 pounds. And I started crying, and I said, the baby was 6. So I'll never forget that. But then what happened is I started losing weight progressively. And by the time I hit my pre-baby weight, I was like, and a lot of people were like, well, you're breastfeeding, it's common to lose weight quickly when you're breastfeeding. And then it kept going, and I was in doctors' offices saying to them, I'm 20 at the time. I was like, I'm 28 years old, and all anyone could really tell me in the beginning was that kind of like that I should feel lucky that I was losing weight so fast.
And I remember one doctor told you probably had an eating disorder.
Lots of that. A lot of it was that
that was heartbreaking because she looked sick.
Yeah, a lot of it was like, what's this obsession with your weight? Why are you keeping track of how much you're losing? Thinking that was kind of psychologically motivated rather than me being genuinely in fear for my life. Then what started happening was I would get pain, like kind of like. It almost felt like it was like in my bones. I was used to joint pain because I that sort of like rheumatic, like joint pain that comes with autoimmune illness, I was really familiar with.
So you knew you had an autoimmune disease.
I just didn't know what.
You just didn't know what it was. Okay.
Yeah. And so I also knew that endometriosis, can be
It's
really
autoimmune.
complicated as well, so sometimes it was hard. I was having pain. I was having nosebleeds. I was having...
And you're a new mom, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, and I was having organ pain, which was really strange because I think a lot of doctors are of the mentality that you can't feel organ pain, but you can feel referred pain a lot of the time. So I knew that my insides were hurting. A lot of people would say to me, your period's probably coming back, I was like, let me tell you, I know about period cramps. I know about them better than anyone. This is something else. And then with the lupus, it was like hair thinning. The lupus and Sjogren's was like salivary gland swelling. So like my glands here, and like here kind of would like swell up, and it made my face look really strange and unfamiliar. And the fatigue was, indescribable, the fatigue. I thought I was narcoleptic. I could barely stay awake for more than a couple hours a day. And again, a lot of it was, you're a new mom. Of course you're tired. And I was like, listen, I'm very fortunate. I have a lot of support, Like, there's no reason that I should be this exhausted.
Okay, so at this point, all the doctors that you've seen said, like, basically you have an eating disorder, you're a new mom, that's why you're tired, so you finally go see Dr. Wallace, and does he do a battery of tests? Like, how does he find out what it is that you have?
So the first doctor who suspected that I had lupus was actually a woman. And she asked me the question, we were kind of going through all of this. She knew that I had tested positive for early detection Sjogren's. And she was just kind of looking at some of these like illnesses that I had been diagnosed with, and they were kind of missing like a bigger chunk, And she asked me the question, she said, how did you feel during your pregnancy? And I said, I felt the best I've ever felt in my entire life. I made an album, I shot a movie, I was like 6 months pregnant running after a horse in the forest, I was diving, I was acting, I felt incredible. Why? And she was like, well, because in patients with lupus, a lot of the time they can feel really good when they're pregnant because we treat lupus with immunosuppression, and the baby sort of acts as immunosuppression.
Your immune system goes down in pregnancy.
I did not know that. That is insane.
Yeah, and so she was like, light bulb. And then she kind of transferred my care to Dr. Wallace, who confirmed my SLE diagnosis. And he... when I first started seeing him, I looked and just was terrible. And I was feeling really hopeless.
Of course you were.
Yeah, I was feeling really hopeless. And I remember, and it was hard because I was trying to deal with the T-cell lymphoproliferative disorder and the lupus at the same time. And some of the treatments for them are contradictory. That diagnosis I had confirmed with a bone marrow biopsy, which was
amazing.
Deeply unfun.
Painful.
Oh, deeply unfun. And I knew that there wasn't, at that point in time, significant bone marrow infiltration. And so if there's not significant bone marrow infiltration, then they sometimes give you a little longer of a window. My doctor at the time was like, you should use that window to freeze your eggs, just in case this goes, in a different direction. But I ended up starting the lupus treatment, the Benlysta. The problem was they told me that it would take 6 to 8 months before I would feel anything. My Dr. Wallace, we were talking kind of about what family planning looks for me moving forward with this diagnosis. And he said to me, there's a regimen that I recommend to my lupus patients, and it involves progesterone suppositories, a corticosteroid, and then something else that I can't remember right now. And I just looked at him and I said, that's what Dr. A gave to me, and that's how I got pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you knew. I literally could cry right now. I don't know how you knew, but what you making that decision in that moment is why I was able to have my son.
An ad.
Now made from Daya Oat Cream Blend.
It's finally summer. I wish I could spend every day at the beach, but there's truly nothing better than the smell of the fresh ocean breeze on a hot day. But recently I've been using Osea's Undaria Algae Body Oil. That brings that feeling right into my daily routine. And you guys, I'm obsessed. I literally get out of the shower and I slather that oil all over me. I'm always looking for ways to keep my skin looking fresh and young. And Osea's Undaria Algae Body Oil is clinically proven to instantly improve skin's elasticity and deeply moisturize. I'm serious. I've been putting it on every day after the shower, and I've noticed a huge difference in the texture of my skin. I love that knowing Osea's products are clean, vegan, cruelty-free, and climate-neutral certified. Dr. A and I created SheMD to empower women, and I absolutely love that Osea is a woman-founded and led company that has been making seaweed-infused skincare for over 28 years. Get healthy, glowing skin for summer with clean, vegan skin and body care from Osea. Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code SheMD at OseaMalibu.com. You'll get free samples with every order and free shipping on orders over $60. Head to OSEAMalibu.com and use code SheMD for 10% off. Between my kids, my work, and all the life logistics we all have to deal with, sometimes I feel like I get about 1 million emails and texts a day. I just don't have the time, let alone the mental energy to get through and organize them all. I'm a double Virgo, but you would never know it by looking at my desktop. I know that I'm not alone when I open up my calendar and I'm just instantly overwhelmed with everything I have going on. It's easy for things to fall through the cracks when you're going a mile a minute. That is why I have to tell you guys about Ohai.ai. It's an AI personal assistant that helps busy people manage all the things we have to keep track of. We all have that mental running list of everything we have to do, and Ohai.ai is literally like having a second brain. It keeps track of to-do.
And I just remember when he said that, I mean, she's just so smart and so intuitive and just like, you know, borderline psychic. Like, I was just like, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, of course she did. Of course she did. Of course she knew. And even if you did, we didn't know, you knew. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I was so grateful.
The best thing about Ash is she listens. You know, when you tell her you need this, she doesn't argue with you. She knows a lot. I'm not kidding.
I know.
No, I wasn't kidding with you. See, when she talks, you can't, I mean, she knows so much about her body. She knows exactly what's wrong with her. And every time, whenever she complains of something, I always take her seriously, always, because she knows. And
you tell other people too. She'll bark up a tree for me. She'll call someone else and be like, she's gonna go see you. Listen to her.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like having her as an advocate. I grew up really, without access to meaningful health care.
You did?
Yeah, I grew up in like a pretty, at best lower middle class, at worst abject poverty, like, welfare. Like, we did not have
from rags to riches. No, so far it's this whole thing is not what I expected. And like, if you look at the title, if you look at the upper left up there, like, this is, I mean, it addresses, like, I feel like they never really fully explain endometriosis. I don't know if that's supposed to be common knowledge, but this is not not that it makes it a bad thing. It's just not what I was expecting.
Have access to healthcare. We didn't see doctors very often. I didn't see dentists until I was, in LA. And
you have beautiful teeth.
Thank you. I didn't think they did. They're all mine, I promise. When Dr. A, like, having this relationship with her, I tell people all the time, of all the things that I have in my career, everything, like, of all the things, all of the superficial, lavish, luxuries that come along with my privilege to be in the position that I'm in as a musician, the single thing that I am the most grateful for is having access to meaningful healthcare and to compassionate healthcare professionals.
Yeah, it's true.
It is a absolute game changer. My life would look so different. It would look so different. And because of that, I send people to Dr. A. I have like a running tab. I will send
Wow.
everyone to Dr. A. I'm like,
to-
I'll pay for your appointment. I'll pay for your appointment. I'll pay for your appointment. And Dr. A, by the way, in return, will very often opt for her services, you know, to people if I explain the situation to her.
She's
You know, one of my memories with Ash is she was like, it was the first year I met her, and I diagnosed her with endo, and she felt better. And, you know, even back then I was like, Ash, you have to talk about endometriosis. You have to talk about painful periods. And like always, she's like, of course, I want to educate. So we went on the doctor's show, and some fertility doctor watched her episode and called me and said, listen, I want to give free IVF, free egg freezing, free everything to her. Just have her come to me. So, you know, I called her. I'm like, because it's a lot of money. And I'm like, Ash, there's this doctor. And she was very young. She must have been like 21. And I called her and I'm like, there's this doctor who's offering all his services free of charge. You know what she told me over the phone? She said, you go tell that doctor I have money and I will pay for my own egg freezing. Tell that doctor to donate that egg freezing on my behalf to someone who doesn't have money. I swear to God, I hung up the phone and I'm like, what? This is the first time and the last time in my life, and I've never seen it again, that I've offered a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 treatment to a patient free of charge who walked away from it.
I've seen you do the exact same.
I know, but on that day I told myself, and I've said it, there are very few people who walk on this planet as kind, as generous, as loving as this woman sitting here. Did you see her come in? You were not
No,
here.
I did. I said it was a ray of sunshine. I walked in and she gave me this ginormous hug. I'm like, who is this gorgeous little wood nymph? Gave me a hug.
She walked in right now and I'm like, Ash, this is my team. She went around and hugged every single person. That's who she is, though. That's why people love her so much. There's only one of her
Guys,
on this planet.
I think I'm gonna combust if you keep going.
Okay, can I ask you? Okay, I have a couple questions for you. How do you feel now?
A lot better.
Look at her. She looks amazing.
You look great.
Better.
Good.
There's still hard days, you know? Like, that's kind of the thing with autoimmune illnesses and you know, with, you know, specifically, like, any sort of, chronic disorder, you know. The hardest thing for me, I think, was trying to learn about lupus as it existing as an illness that will affect me for the longevity of my life, and then also learning about chronic leukemias and how they're different, you know, from other conditions, you know, because like initially I was like, oh my God, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, you hear that,
you know, and then you have to
terrified.
kind of learn about the mechanism of the disease, really. And I would say that, you know, I'm doing significantly better, but there are days where I wake up and I just get, you know, kind of put on my butt, like, and when that first started happening, that was hard because I was like, oh my gosh, we're going backwards, it's gonna happen all over again. And then I had to get used to this new, you know, pendulum, which is that some days I will feel that way, and I've learned what I can control and what I can't in terms of how it happens. And I know that sometimes I can control if it happens if I decide that I'm gonna, you know, try to squeeze a 2-day music video shoot into 1 day.
Do you guys want to have more babies?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want more babies really badly. I think, you know, I had such a pleasant experience being pregnant with my son, and he's the light of my life. I mean, he is
the
just
cutest little thing.
He's the best kid. He's just the best kid. And like, honestly, I think some things are sort of like divinely motivated, or at least, you know, I do believe that things happen for a reason. And like, he's just got the most exceptional temperament, and he's so loving and compassionate. And I think about, you know, I've been sick and when I say I've been sick, I mean like his experience of me is that I'm sick, not even just like I have a diagnosis, like I'm living like a sick person for majority of his life, you know, it was 2/3, 3/4 of it. And I had a lot of guilt, and I just remember laying there and just feeling so bad about myself. And then I realized that unnecessary guilt was making me worse, you know. And I the thing I told myself is I was grieving the fact that I couldn't be the best mom in the world, because I wanted to be the best mom in the world.
You
in
are the best
history.
mom.
Well, the thing that I realized was like my only job is to be the best mom that I'm capable of being, and hopefully my son will recognize that effort and will know that I did the best that I can. And I also know that I need to be really strong and I need to work hard to get better for him, so that I can show up and not just show up in a way that I'm burning myself out to show up physically, but show up and be present and look him in the eyes when we play and smile and react, and not just be sleeping through my day because I am splitting myself this way and that way, and I'm not giving myself any time to heal. And now that I've had this experience and that everything is kind of mellowed out a little bit more, I think it's definitely going to change the type of parent that I am with him moving forward and with any subsequent children that I have,
Because boys take a lot of, I'm
Oh
a boy
my
mom
gosh,
too, and they take a lot of energy. I go over to her house and the girls are just sitting there playing, and I'm like, my boys were climbing, and you're just like, you're just trying to make sure that they don't jump off of a cliff. I mean, it literally. So it's when you're tired and sick, like that's just.
Yeah.
And she works. She doesn't talk about it. She was sick, but this woman works nonstop. That's why I keep telling her, slow down, slow down, slow down. It's very rare for me to tell someone slow down because someone needs to tell me to slow down.
I know.
But she was so sick. She was still working. She's always present for her baby. She does it all. You have superpowers.
I appreciate that, Dr. A, but I think you are like a very meaningful person to aspire to in my life. Like you were the first really just badass professional woman that I built a relationship with. And I remember thinking the same things. I actually used to use you as an example all the time. Is it's be like, I'm tired and I'm this or whatever. I'd be like, Dr. A, dude, I was like, she's delivering babies and she's saving people and she's diagnosing breast cancer and she's flying on an emergency plane to go help with a complicated delivery in a country but she doesn't speak the language, and she's raising these incredible children, and early in our relationship, I'm like, she's raising these incredible young women. They're going to Stanford. And then she's bringing another young child into her life because she's an absolute angel. She's beautiful. She's funny. She's kind. I was just like, and I remember looking at you and being like, but you know what, is you were all those things, but you also were real when you needed you told me, you were like, you need to take a break.
You need
I'd
to
be like,
slow
no, I
the
can't.
fuck
You'd be like,
down.
you think that I want to take a break? And I was like, no. And she was like, well, we have to sometimes, And that's really important to me. I don't think we were probably planning on getting into this, but, I have no problem talking about it. I'm so grateful that you recommended the ketamine clinic to me.
Oh my God. Thank you. I want to cry if you talk about it.
Yeah.
It changed my life.
I wasn't expecting that.
Thanks so much for joining us today on SheMD.
Remember, if you want to own your health, a good place to start is by following us on social media at SheMD Podcast and by subscribing to our show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
For takeaways from today's episode, visit our website, shemdpodcast.com. We'll see you next time on SheMD. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for a physician's medical advice. You should regularly consult your medical provider in matters relating to your own health. Even though we share our honest beliefs on SheMD, some of the products and services we discuss may involve sponsorships or paid advertising.
I was wondering what was going to come up in my recommended. Alright guys, I don't know, it just didn't occur to me that this might be a female focused kind of podcast. If you guys remember, there was a Halsey I don't even know what to call it. It was like an interview, and it talked a lot about mental health and stuff like that. But this was, I wasn't really sure what I was gonna be watching, but it's it definitely educated me in terms of like a lot of the whole. You see, I don't know how to phrase this. Like the female experience. I don't know if you want to call it that, but I was not expecting, because the way the podcast starts out is like it implies that you already know about CMD, whatnot. But this was it was interesting. I mean, it's like I said, it's definitely not what I was expecting, but that was part one. We'll get to part two eventually. I think it's under 40 minutes, so it's not as long as this one. But oh my god, the ads! Oh my god, I understand they need sponsors and all that, but the ads! Oh my god. I'm interested in what are they going to talk about with the ketamine clinic, but I I don't want to say I'm speechless, but this is a lot. It was a lot to take in for me as someone who doesn't know a lot about this stuff, and I feel like I learned something. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining me for part one. I'm gonna chill for a little bit and absorb all of this. Take care of yourselves and each other.